Book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6. Starting at verse 22, and it reads, And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty, and the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall be suddenly afraid. I'm going to start off by giving all praises, all honor, and all glory to Elohim Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. All honors to the elders and apostles that taught me this truth, or whom I learned this truth from. Peace and salutations to the Akim around the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth with faith and with sincerity, as well as risking their lives and the freedom to do so now more so than ever. Shalom to the Akim and the Aquatato listening and learning. To you, I say Shalom. Brother Yawasop, coming at you with another lesson through the Spirit and through the power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. This lesson is inspired by an article on my Newsbreak app, and it prompted me to want to do a lesson because I'll explain it. But from what I understand, even if they were to halt the tariffs, pretty much the economy has already been affected by it. You can see based on the fact of what's already happening, with the stock market. I know that the U.S. and Moab or China are pretty much coming to, the tables and discussing, basically stopping or halting or lowering the tariffs. But you have to recall when he put those 145% tariffs on certain products, and I believe Moab put a certain amount, a percentage on American products, and this is affecting Moab's economy, but it's affecting Babylon the Great as well, and that's why you hearing about, the Port of LA doesn't have many shipping containers. So it says the first boats carrying Chinese goods with with 145% tariffs are arriving in LA. Shipments are cut in half. Expect shortages soon. I know in the news they said expect shortages within the next couple of weeks. I was following something, I think a brother posted a video or something I read where it said, they got goods up till 5 to 7 weeks. So pretty much my estimation, speaking as a man, I think you're going to really feel the effects of this when it's time for these kids to go back to school. It says American consumers are on the cusp of tough choices because of President Donald Trump's trade war. Ships now pulling into U.S. harbors from China are the first to be subject to the massive tariffs that America is imposing on most Chinese imports. That means in a matter of weeks, consumers will face higher prices and shortages of certain items. And I was speaking to my mechanic. I should have bought the part already. I forgot. I was speaking to my mechanic, but a lot of those parts for your automobiles are made from China. So it's a lot of things made from China, more than you expect. So don't be shocked or surprised when you're paying out the wazoo for particular things you may need. Because we all gonna need auto parts. And or if you can't find certain items. Says imports from China have fallen dramatically since Trump imposed steep tariffs, particularly since last month when the tick-for-tack war sent the tariff on most Chinese goods up to 145%. This week we're down about 35% compared to the same time last year. And these cargo ships coming in are the first ones to be attached to the tariffs that were levied against China and other locations last month. Gene Cercoa, executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, told CNN Tuesday that's why the cargo volume is so light. The drop in imports from China on the boats now coming into port is more than 50%, Cercoa said. Many importers have canceled previous orders because U.S. businesses aren't interested in paying the steep tariff, which came more than double the price of Chinese goods. The Port of LA had expected 80 ships to arrive in May, but 20% of those have been canceled. Sirocco said customers have already canceled 13 selling for June. And you still don't know how long this is going to last. So Circa warned retailers and importers alike are telling me that the products now cost about 2.5 times more than they did just last month, and expect that to increase. Because we coming into them hard times. You know, this is the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3, and beginning at verse 1, and it reads, "This know also in the last days, perilous times shall come." When you go into this word perilous, it's kalipes, meaning fierce or dangerous. It means hard to bear, hard to do. So, in essence, it's going to be hard to live, hard to survive. I've listened to brothers' videos, and you can hear, Jake, tired of working.
Ad block, total ad block is an ad.
But you live in a system where if you don't work, you don't eat, or don't have a roof over your head. You're seeing the mindset of these Edomites as far as, the elder broke down, Revelations 12 about the dragon feeding the woman for a time and times. So we come to the time where the dragon no longer feeding us, and you're gonna have to solely rely on, fellow brothers, or that's the Lord ultimately working through another brother. But you got to rely ultimately on Yahweh Shem Yahshua, because they about to make it tight, all in order to push that mindset of getting you to bow down. It says, verse 2, "For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful and unholy, without natural affection," which we're seeing, DJ Trump is a very non-compassionate individual. I constantly think about that guy Garcia, where pretty much the administration doesn't want to admit that they fucked up, so they photoshopping stuff and trying to basically label him the bad guy. Which is deep. Hey, without natural affection, truth breakers, false accusers, incontinent, meaning lawless, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors. I hate this. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of the Most High. And that's gonna be the mindset of these people. But just imagine how these people gonna react when they ain't got time to distract themselves in their pleasures. When all they could do is dwell on the fact of their suffering. That's just like certain people, like addicts and whatnot. Like when I was coming up, you had call them base heads, crackheads, whatever. That drug was so addictive, that witchcraft was so powerful that those people would be committing petty crimes. You had to watch those type of individuals. So that's just like with those that's addicted to pleasures. What they say, I quoted something Jay-Z supposedly said, as far as, once you go to eating caviar, you can't go back to eating sardines. Yeah. So most people is going to be in this mindset. They're not going to try to lose what they have, and they're going to try to maintain it by any means possible. And that's where you're going to get your second Ezra chapter 15. This is second Ezra chapter 15, starting at verse 19, and it reads, "And a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation." So, they're going to be going house to house, and seeing what you got, This shit about to get completely wicked, you know. But again, this is why it's so important to lock in, you know. Be grateful that you're amongst like-minded men, you know. But again, like I said, things about to get real tight, you know. So I don't know exactly when, you know, but just watch when these. She'll go to the store and see some old goofy shit like when I went and bought my daughter them shoes. Like I said, I'm like, man, these shoes ain't never cost this amount of money. Back in Second Ezra chapter 6 and verse 24. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountains shall still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. Whosoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation in the end of your world. Yeah, because pretty much we're coming into the time of Jacob's trouble. Yeah, a lot of people about to suffer. Yeah, and we, you know, in this truth, become accustomed to suffering. You know, although suffering is not fun, but it's required of us. You know, especially in this walk. You know, you're gonna have to give up things. You're gonna have to forego things, sacrifice things, and focus on particular things while pretty much putting particular things on the back end. But again, like I say, what's really going to how these people go ape shit is when they can't take care of their households. You know, brother did a video about 10 million people being behind on their rent, and again, Esau Edom is a non-compassionate individual. You know, I was noticing with these tariffs, no increases in pay, yet and still no, you know. I was just reading something about how your light bill and your gas bill can be affected by these tariffs, which makes sense to a degree because you got to remember a lot of the gas was being imported. You know, that was one of the reasons why the gas supposed to went up so high. So you know, don't be surprised when you see increase in products or a lack thereof. You know, that's all part of the story. You stay locked in and faithful to your Yahweh Bashim Yahshua. Lord will. We all do. If that's your lot, you know. With that, you know, may the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahshua, you know, remain undefeated. With that, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Kol Haloyim La Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai Ba'Hashem Rachak. Double honors to the elders and to the apostles that taught me this truth. Peace and salutations to the Akim across the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth with faith and with sincerity, as well as risking their lives and a freedom to do so. Now more so than ever. Shalom to the Akim and the Aqua that they're listening and learning, Lord willingly. This is edifying. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners scattered abroad in the land of other nations, appearing like the other nations, but whom subscribe to this truth. To you I say shalom. Till next time, Lord willingly. Shalom, shalom. Kwam Yashra'Allah, Mawath Lava Ball.